You're probably wondering what it is exactly that we're referring to on these new wheels. Well, ICON has never had a beadlock wheel before now. So we're gonna show you guys exactly how they've designed this beadlock wheel, how revolutionary it is, yet super simple. So we have Caleb. Caleb was the guy behind the idea and the one responsible for all of the design and engineering and testing of this new beadlock rebound. So we're gonna have Caleb just basically give us some insight on how this wheel came about, why it's simple yet genius. So Caleb, you're also the engineer, right? You do engineering, you do R&D, research and development for ICON suspension and then ICON alloys.
Yeah, so I do research and development for ICON Vehicle Dynamics, and I do a lot of just off-roading on my own. It's a passion of mine. Beadlocks have been in the off-road world for a long time, and I've dealt with them, I've installed them, and just something about them, it really bothered me. Like it didn't make a lot of sense in how they were designed, and I was thinking about it for a while, and there was just, it kind of nagged at my mind, and that's kind of how I came across this idea. So.
Yeah, and with regular beadlocks, you have a beadlock ring, right? So you have all of that hardware, you have the ring itself, you have all of the bolts that are holding the ring on, and it's sort of, well, it's kind of cumbersome, right? So you have all of that assembly and everything else involved with it, but I think the bigger problem is the fact that they're not DOT approved, right? And why aren't the regular beadlock wheels with the outer ring, why are those not approved?
So those aren't approved by the Department of Transportation because of the amount of maintenance that they require. Once you put that ring on and you tighten all those bolts down and torque them to spec, those bolts are going to be under constant stress for the entire time that tire is mounted. And so that's eventually they could back out and they could fatigue. And so there's a periodic maintenance required, whereas with these, there's no maintenance required at all.
So because somebody has to do that maintenance on the regular beadlocks, the DOT says, well, we don't think you guys are going to do it, and plus it allows more room for failures, and at highway speeds that could be catastrophic, and it could be completely fatal. So I get it why they don't want to do that, right? So makes sense. So your design, which we're going to get into right now, what makes the ICON Rebound an actual beadlock. So what Caleb has done is actually what a lot of us hardcore off-roaders have done without having to spend the money on pricey beadlocks. We basically took steel wheels and we either drilled self-tappers into the sort of the outer rim of the wheel, and that's what held the bead on. It was a heck of a lot less expensive than a true beadlock. So what you did is you took that sort of, older technology, or maybe that, cheaper technology, I don't know exactly what they call it, and thought about a much better way, and a way that would really substantially hold the bead to the bead seat on the wheel. So when you're putting a bunch of pressure against the sidewall, actually holds the bead in place without any bead ring or anything sticking out of the ring itself, or of the rim itself, right? So what you've done is you've actually machined these wheels, or had these wheels specially made to put in this hardware that goes and sits and screws into this seat. Well, it'd probably be a lot easier for me to have you explain exactly how you designed this.
Well, yeah, you kind of touched on it. When I was in high school, we had a high school dragster that we got to work on. It was a really fun project. And we had basically self-tapping screws going straight into the bead of the tire. And while it does a good job, it holds the tire onto the rim properly, it's a one-time use. Like you're screwing into the rubber of the tire, and you're kind of killing the tire at the same time. And so what we have here is all of these bolts are protruding into the rim, and they are basically capturing, they aren't going into the bead itself, but they're screwing in behind the bead. So the tire can't go anywhere because that bead is being held in from the outside by the rim itself, and on the inside by all of these pins. And so it really has nowhere to go.
Yeah. Super smart. It's simple, but it's just super smart. So the one thing is with this, there's several key advantages, but one of the biggest advantages is that now we're right in the middle of going through the DOT approval process, because that's a big deal. Obviously, they're going to have to sign off on it, and the DOT has some, requirements for whether this will be approved for highway use or road use. And from everything that it looks like within those parameters or within those requirements, that this really shouldn't have any problems being approved, because there is no structural. How would you explain that? There is no.
The hardware is only ever stressed if the tire is in a debead situation. So the hardware really is just sitting there for 99.9% of the time. And when you needed that debeading feature, or that prevention from debeading, that's when the hardware is there to keep the tire on.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the awesome features, is that the hardware is really never under stress until it's needed.
Yeah, that's amazing. Super smart. One of the things that we had discussed the other day about the hardware is the fact that the threaded part of these bolts only sits in the wheel itself, and then what protrudes into the wheel that actually sits behind the tire bead, that part is machined, so you're not getting any threads that are actually cutting in to the rubber tire bead part of the tire, which is super smart as well. So that's going to help save any wear and tear on the inside of the tire, because we all know that when we're out on the trails and we're aired down, 5, 6, 8 psi running beadlocks, that tire bead's going to contact those pins. So very smart.
And then just the one thing I'll add is that with this design, everything is completely reusable. We've tested this. We've tried debeading the tire. We've checked the pins, we've checked the wheel, we've checked the tire itself, and there's really no damage to any of it. It's all perfectly reusable, and we can mount and dismount it as many times as we want.
And we all know ICON's reputation for being just a premier, high quality, super stringent on all of your testing and engineering and designs. So if you know anything about ICON, we all know that this is going to be rigorously tested throughout many different durations of off-roading. And the one test that we were talking about yesterday, where they literally hooked a tow strap onto the spokes of the Rebound and then they pulled out back on the tow strap that were hooked around the spokes here, with basically a big board pressing against the sidewall of the tire. And you guys started with about 1,000 pounds?
So we did this on a normal wheel, a non-beadlock first, and we were pulling at around 800 to 1,000 pounds of force on the wheel before the tire itself debeaded into the wheel. And we put one of these on. It was one of the early prototypes, and at about 5,500 pounds of force, we got the tire to actually drag over the block. And again, we checked the bead, we checked the tire, the pins. There was no damage to anything. So
that's just amazing. That's incredible. So if that's not a true testament to how well this design really works, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason that we're out here right now. Is this is a real world test of the beadlock. So we're calling it the ICON Interlock.
ICON Interlock. That's amazing. Yeah, and we've and you guys will be able to see as well. We put this tire to the test. We went up Moab Rim. We went all over the place. I'm not even sure exactly where we were, but these tires were flexing and folding over all the time, and not once did any air leak out of them. Which, speaking of that, one of the things that I found really unique is, you guys thought of everything. So you might be wondering, well, what would happen if one of these bolts would fail, or if one would come loose out on the highway? What would be the repercussions from that?
On an interlock, really all that's going to happen is you're going to develop a slow leak. You'd lose pressure over time. Nothing catastrophic where on a normal beadlock, if that ring were to pop off or unzip, as they say, your tire is going to come off the rim entirely. And so it's very safe. And there's also an O-ring and a hydraulic fitting specifications under the head of this bolt, so it's really well sealed.
So it's not going to leak any air, and that O-ring, you actually have a special cavity that fits the O-ring, so it's not like the head of the bolt is going to be squeezing down on that O-ring either, causing fatigue and failure after a while. That O-ring's not going to have any issues, even if you do accidentally over torque one of these bolts. So that's really ingenious too. And the other thing I really liked is, first, for one, these bolts are not coming out. There's no chance of having a failure of one of these bolts while you're cruising down the highway or the trail, because you guys have even, made it so that they're not going to come out of there either. Yeah, we are super excited to be able to, announce this and release this to you guys, because it is going to be revolutionary. It's going to be. Now, is it going to be a lot less expensive than your regular beadlocks? I would imagine.
It will be less expensive than a normal beadlock would, and just the simplicity. I mean, if you've ever worked with a normal beadlock, it's very time consuming, very tedious, and if you don't do it properly, it's actually very dangerous. Whereas this is a lot more simple and easy to use.
Pretty amazing technology, pretty awesome to have you here, and it's pretty awesome to be here. We definitely appreciate you guys inviting us out and doing some footage and being able to ride along and test out some of this new technology. We're also going to be talking about some other technology that you guys are releasing, so make sure and stay tuned, guys. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button, thumbs up to like the video, and guys, as always, we appreciate all of you for watching. I'm Josh from Trobuilt. This is Caleb from ICON Vehicle Dynamics, and we'll see you guys out on the trails.